All right. Back with this one. I don't know if you can see it. I went through and did some cleaning up of some of the lines here, and I'm probably going to go through and do that a little bit more digitally to kind of clean up some of that white out because it doesn't blend as well. Not sure how I feel about that new ink. It takes longer to dry, so it's definitely harder to go back through and do my cleanup with. Nonetheless. Also, I decided that my crow quill was just feeling real stiff on this outside border here. So I went back through with my brush and am just kind of thickening up some of those lines and started doing it with a brush over here. And I really just sort of like the sense of flow with it. It takes longer for sure. It's not as fast, but it feels like it finds the line better, or at least the line that's intended better. This is a Pentel fine brush or fine tip disposable pen brush. I don't really find them disposable, to be honest. I think these brushes hold their point real well and do pretty well. This one is struggling a little bit with flow, but I've got a little bit of ink over here that I dip it in anyways to kind of keep a nice wet tip on it and keep it sharp. Yeah, so let's go through and do some long, wavy, curvy, textured lines. I don't know if you guys can see that. Let's move that up just a little bit right there. This is one of those spots that I'm not exactly worried about every specific line the way it was laid down originally. I am trying to imply the same sense of animation and energy with quick, long, kind of snapped brush strokes. This has got a real texture to it, so I want to imply that. I have my TV on in the other room for the dogs. If you guys hear that in the background, I'm not really sure what's playing in there, but it's probably something from my YouTube as well because there's lots of drawing videos and my dogs liked kind of that sound of just a human voice when they're alone so they don't get anxious. So I put on lots of drawing videos because usually, you know, the live stream videos can be long and I don't have to worry about the show running out or Netflix asking if my dogs are still there because, you know, they can't operate a remote unless they're doing it by accident, jumping on the couch when I don't want them to and pausing my show or switching apps entirely because, you know, dogs, gotta love them. Actually, I do love my babies. Now, you'll also notice, too, that sometimes I go a little outside of my original holding line, and that's more just because I'm trying to pull a line with energy, and it's okay if I go back and have to clean that up a little bit. This used to be harder with lots of different whiteouts and things, but these days you've got Posca markers work just outstanding for line cleanup. As long as you can wait and be patient enough for your ink to dry so that when you put the Posca marker down, it doesn't have to smear into it and you got to clean it up a second time. But that's the great thing about them is you can clean them up a second time. There's a lot of times when you're using that old Pro White stuff that you try and dig in, you weren't patient, and then suddenly it would smear, and then it was a mess, and then you'd have to clean it up, and then you'd ruin the page, and you'd either have to cut out a piece of Bristol board and just do it over the top again, tape that down, and kind of make a little holding mask. Yeah, so I don't know if you can see, I'm kind of getting longer, smoother lines. The brush is definitely a different stroke. And I don't have to build my lines nearly as much. So it just makes this faster. I could absolutely do this with a crow quill. It's just, this allows me for speed and a little bit different handling. I like the lines, I'm getting better with it. I don't know if my head's getting in the way or not. I hope this all works out. It's a little hard to keep the page where y'all can see it. Try and get better at that. Maybe I'll do what they do in Hollywood, make myself some cues, put some X's down on my board so I know where I can move in and out of. It's actually not a bad idea. And, you know, I'll probably go back through with, you know, a micron or a repeatograph or something like that and find some smaller lines that I can pick up in that. Not exactly happy with all the feathering in it, so I can pick that back up and add texture. And as I've said, Mr. Booth's stuff has a tendency to be very textured just because of the variety of line weight and direction even that the lines are pulled. So I want to keep that energy and stay, you know, pretty genuine to the original artwork while still kind of just feeling the energy of the piece. That's really more the important piece. If you can get anything across, I posted something online not long ago, and this guy kept telling me how he was really annoyed that the original artist had put this panel in this place, and that, you know, it really ruined that this would be a pinup piece. And I was like, you know, this is a page to a comic, right? So this is there to tell a story, not to be a pinup piece, not to be a cover. That's not the point of it. And that being upset that a panel in a single page out of context is there because it ruins its ability to be a poster for you, well, that's kind of misses the point. You're trying to tell a story, and if that panel is there, it's there to tell the story. I mean, I can understand you might put a panel in the wrong place as an artist. That happens sometimes, but I mean, we're talking about a renowned artist who is kind of well-loved throughout the industry, and I really don't think that this person mistakenly put this panel there. They were doing it for the sake of storytelling, and that's the point. The point of all of this is to tell stories and to do it in a clear way where the reader can get lost and not have to think about how that storytelling is being done. For example, if you have to stop and remember what panel you're going to next, well, then you've taken yourself out of the story for a moment. So as an inker, your side of that is to create enough variety in line and clarity to feel as though that this is three-dimensional but easy to read, so you don't get lost in what is going on here. What is that line? Is that an ear? What's going on with that hand? You want to be clear. You want what you're inking to look like what it's supposed to be. It's something I picked up from one of the Klaus Janson books, and I guarantee you that it's one of those things that I sort of thought was a standard piece of information, but it's harder than you think when you get there, because you start inking a piece and you kind of get lost in the lines here and there, and you just go, oh, this looks good, and then you pull back from it and you go, oh, well, does that read very well? Is it clear? I can't really make out what's exactly happening. So you vary your line weight. For example, I am struggling to feel the separation of this hand to his shoulder. So I am going to go through and add a little more depth to this line. And the underside of her breast to give more weight to this foreground item. My little heater kicking on. All right, so now we have a little bit better separation. I still feel like that looks a touch muddy, and I might go through and clean some of this up with some whiteout for a little clarity. Anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and leave that at this for the moment, or at least where we are for the moment. I'll come back to maybe when we start doing some of these smaller panels and having to get into using some rulers.